This presentation is about SenseIT IoT by domain. SenseIT IoT is an Internet of Things application which captures critical data from around the world in real time. SenseIT is a cloud-based application. It reads sensor data from various sensor manufacturers, uploads the data to the cloud, standardizes the data, and inserts the data into our HANA database. SenseIT can be used with or without ERP. For today's presentation, we're using with ERP, and that would be SAP Business One. Without ERP, it can use SenseIT's own portal, and in the not-too-distant futures, we'll have APIs which allow SenseIT to be configured with other ERPs. For today's journey, we'll be tracing chemicals that are being shipped from Detroit, Michigan to California, just south of Los Angeles. And we're mostly interested in the location, which is longitude and latitude, and the temperature. We can capture these other readings, but for today's shipment, they're not pertinent. The sensor gets attached to the shipment itself. It's important to note that SenseIT is more for the manufacturer or the distributor or the owner of the product than it is for the logistics company. So we're helping to protect the product from the owner or the distributor's point of view. So let's look at how SenseIT gets configured in SAP Business One. This is a typical delivery note. And what we do is we go into the packing list and we package the product. In this case, we see 2 pallets, chemicals in each product, and we see a tracking number. The tracking number is a UDF, and that's the tracking number of the actual shipper, whether it's FedEx or UPS, LTL, full truckload. It is the tracking number of the shipper. The package number is important because that's what we will attach the sensor to, this specific package from a database perspective using this number. We add a new screen to SAP Business One from where we provision the sensor. So when we're done completing the data on this screen and we hit update, it actually uploads that data via API to the sensor manufacturer. So we're actually provisioning the sensor through this screen. Okay? For today's example, we're using an Emerson sensor. It's a disposable sensor, costs about $40. In the system, we maintain an inventory. So this company, Hudson, has an inventory of their own sensors. So there's a pull-down system here where they can only select sensors that are not active currently. In other words, you can't have 2 sensors active at the same time. We define the sensor begin date and time and end date and time. These are estimated or planned. We also have fields to capture the actual begin date and end dates. We can define whether the product is hazardous and or perishable. For today's example, the chemical is perishable. And then we define the thresholds. Thresholds are the data that allows us to say, is the product getting too hot or too cold? Is it overly impacted, too humid or too dry? And if a threshold is exceeded, then the system will alert instantly the owner of the product. The owner of the product is set up here. Here it's Blaine Smith, his email and his telephone number, so that if there's an alert, this is where the alert is sent. We said that the minimum and maximum temperature. For today's shipment, the maximum temperature is 86. Remember that number. We're not concerned today about humidity, nor are we concerned about impact level of this product. We set the frequency of the messaging. So we're going to get a message every hour, and there's a definite trade-off between the amount of messages you get and battery life. In this case, we're using an Emerson sensor, and their battery is about 60 days. So let's look at what the shipment looks like. We are going from Detroit to south of Los Angeles. The trucks are pointed the wrong direction, but the trip is definitely from north to southwest. You see mostly green trucks. Green trucks are the scheduled messages, It shows the data that you want, but in this case, when the truck is green, it is not exceeding any of the thresholds. However, when we get through the Mojave here, we do turn red, and that's because that temperature is 86.36. If you remember, the threshold was set at 86 degrees, so it only minorly exceeded the temperature. At this point, the owner of the shipment received an email. In the future, we will have something called positive affirmation, where you need to go in. If you're the owner of the product and you get a message like this, you need to tell the system what you're doing about it. It may be, I've decided to let the product spoil, or I'm going to rush a truck to it to get it cooler, or whatever the action is. You have to do the real action, but then you also have to record it in the system. You will not be able to ignore it. If you're interested in learning more about SenseIT IoT, please contact us at that phone number or email address. We'd love to hear from you, and we'll be publishing additional presentations in the very near future. Thank you for your time.